2 minutes, 21 seconds in, and I already know his information is inaccurate. It's already wrong. Okay. So base jumping is illegal in Yosemite. And there was at one point in Yosemite's history in which um, they did like a trial thing. They allowed it to happen for a little bit, and it was disastrous. So I don't know why he's saying people were doing it successfully, because there were a lot of accidents. But let's get into this. Like I know some of the base jumping stories about how bad they, but to say that that trial period was successful is and he's not even acting like it was a trial period. He's like acting like it was like um legal, just plain legal up until a certain point. That is not true. Um it was not legal, and then they did a trial period, and I'm fairly certain they had to like permit people that only a certain amount could do it per day. There was only very specific locations, which I believe was like El Capitan. I think the only place you were allowed to do it is El Capitan. He immediately, within the first 2 minutes 21 seconds, says that they were doing it off Half Dome too. Not legally. They were not doing it legally off of Half Dome. That was not a designated location, you guys.
For all its beauty and splendor, the wilderness can be a cruel teacher. Base jumping is an extremely dangerous activity with significant inherent risks. Participants face various life-threatening dangers due to the nature of the sport and the challenging environments in which they jump. Even with the highly skilled people who participate in this activity, usually using the utmost caution, base jumping remains an activity with significant risk, and participants must accept these risks willingly. Please click the subscribe and like buttons. This is Outdoor Disasters.
All right.
Yosemite National Park is a place of extraordinary beauty and natural wonder. It is renowned for its breathtaking landscapes, iconic rock formations, majestic waterfalls, and diverse wildlife. The beauty of Yosemite lies in its ability to inspire awe and wonder in all who visit, captivating the hearts of millions of visitors each year. This would be where a new extreme sport would birth, called base jumping. The sport of modern base.
It didn't birth there. They tried to take it there and failed. It did not. The sport itself did not originate in Yosemite.
Jumping officially began in 1978 when a California skydiver named Carl Bonish organized 4 jumpers who successfully jumped again in Yosemite National Park. Carl proved these types of jumps using modern gear and techniques were not only repeatable, but well within the grasp of most experienced skydivers.
The majority of the base jumpers who have jumped in Yosemite have sustained injuries upon landing. So he's wrong. The problems that they have mostly is that there are uncontrollable winds that whip through that valley, because the walls on either side are like over 2,000 feet tall, and so it whips up a lot of wind in the valley, and there you can't control whether or not there's going to be gusts at you as you're trying to get down there. And there's so many boulders and so much debris at the bottom. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to land in a meadow that is nearby, but it's like in the center of the valley, and a lot of these people don't make it to the meadow. I don't know where he got his information, but literally you can read this in Death in Yosemite off the wall. which is a book that they sell in their visitor center, and they talk about the history of base jumping in that book. And it's simply not true that it was so successful. It was not successful at all, and that's why they didn't continue doing it. They gave it a trial run, and then they're like, nope, can't do it.
Bonish also coined the acronym BASE, which stands for building, antenna for a tower, span for a bridge, and earth for a cliff. These are the four types of jumps base jumpers make. The sheer cliffs of Half Dome and El Capitan make Yosemite Valley the mecca for base worldwide. Base jumping was permitted for a brief trial period in 1980 before the park reversed course, citing jumpers' disruptive behavior. A sport that began as a rebel offshoot of skydiving had evolved into a popular and respected derivative of rock climbing. Places in Switzerland, Norway, and Italy welcomed base jumpers, and Yosemite, the best place, maybe the safest place, with its vertical cliffs and grassy landing areas, had only 6 known base jumping deaths in its history, and none since 1999, despite thousands of jumps since. Due to its inherent risks and the need...
Yeah, how many injuries in addition to those deaths? It was incredibly risky sport that the park concluded was not going to be okay. Can't even. All right, you tell me more.
For precise execution, base jumping is considered one of the most extreme and adrenaline-pumping adventure sports, attracting thrill seekers who are willing to push the boundaries of human capabilities and experience the exhilaration of free-falling from unique and challenging locations. For Dean Potter, his base jump would be a disaster. Dean Potter, an American adventurer, was a remarkable figure in the world of extreme sports. He excelled in free climbing, alpinism, base jumping, and highlining, achieving numerous difficult first ascents, free solo ascents, speed ascents, and enchainments in Yosemite National Park in Patagonia. Standing at an impressive 6'5" and weighing 180 pounds, he was larger than life. Potter was not content with conventional thrills. He pushed the boundaries by inventing freebase, a hair-raising act that involved free soloing with a parachute. He also pioneered untethered highlining and mastered base jumping. His life was a true adventure, and he made a significant impact on the world of extreme sports. Born in 1972 and raised in New Hampshire, Dean Potter discovered his passion for climbing during his years in southern New Hampshire. His first foray into climbing happened on the granite cliffs of Joe English Hill, a towering one, 273-foot mountain near a local military base. Breaking the rules, he embarked on a solo climb, wearing nothing but his Converse All-Stars. This bold act marked the beginning of his adventurous climbing journey and showcased his fearless approach to the sport. While attending the University of New Hampshire, Potter's passion for climbing grew, but he couldn't resist his calling. Leaving university at the age of 20, he fully committed himself to climbing, leading him to become a highly influential figure in the free-spirited and countercultural roots of rock climbing during the 21st century. During the 90s, Potter embarked on a nomadic journey, living a rough and minimalist lifestyle even by dirtbag standards. He relied on food stamps, salt sandwiches, and condiments to survive while spending years in his van or couch surfing. Moving between the boulders of Hueco tanks and the red cracks of Moab, he left behind a trail of challenging first ascents and worked temporary dead-end jobs. Potter's climbing legacy spans the landscapes of the United States, South America, and Europe, but it was in Yosemite Valley where his climbing career truly flourished. In 1993, he arrived in Yosemite and crossed paths with the legendary slacklining pioneer, Chongo Chuck. From Chuck, Potter learned about the gritty dirtbag lifestyle and was introduced to slacklining, which became an essential part of his climbing skills.
If you ever want to run into these folks that are the rock climbers and they are the dirtbag lifestyle or whatever that is, they always go to Camp 4, which is at the entrance to the Upper Yosemite Falls Trail. And but it's like an open campground where you just pitch your tent with lots of other people. You don't get like an individual campground. And find some space, pitch your tent. There's maybe like a fire pit or something. And they tend to also go over, like, right across the street is the Yosemite Lodge. And there's a cafeteria over there where they tend to, like, bring their dirty bodies all like roll in and have some breakfast before they start off their day to do things, or it's like maybe the end of their trip or something. But that is where you can find them. I've run into a lot of rock climbers there. My brother and his wife ran into Alex Honnold there, the very famous free climber.
Over the following decades, Potter became a prominent figure in Yosemite's climbing community, especially during the late 90s and early 2000s. His audacious ascents, solo climbs, and record-breaking achievements made him stand out among fellow climbers. His fearless approach and innovative techniques left a lasting impact on the sport, particularly within the iconic cliffs and crags of Yosemite Valley. Inspired by Yosemite legends, Potter set his sights on speed records and big wall link-ups. In 1986, Peter Croft and Jim Bridwell set the bar with their 24-hour link-up of Half Dome and El Capitan, showcasing the possibilities of the number of pitches a climber could attempt in a single day. The concept of the Triple Crown, a one-day link-up of Half Dome, El Capitan, and Mount Watkins, remained unrealized until Dean Potter and
So I'm assuming that what he's saying is that they didn't do the Half Dome Trail. What they did was that they actually climbed the face, which is only rock climbers can do that, climbing the face of Half Dome. Which there have bin disasters on that particular climb as well.
Timmy O'Neill took on the challenge. Their grueling journey involved 71 pitches, most climb free except for some tougher sections. They successfully completed the first Triple Crown link-up after scaling 7,000 feet or 2,100 meters and miles of hiking on approach trails. In 2001, Dean Potter entered the fiercely competitive arena for...
Also, like, when you do that, if you're gonna climb Half Dome that way, you still have to then go down, well, I mean, I guess he's saying that they were illegally base jumping after they did the climb, I guess. But normally what you would do if you are a rock climber, if you climb Half Dome, you would then go down the railings at the top and take the mist trail down to the valley. If you're climbing El Capitan, you would take the trail over to the Yosemite Falls, the Upper Yosemite Falls Trail, and go down from there. But what he's basically implying is that these guys then base jumped off of these huge, like, Half Dome is, I think, 4,000 feet tall over the valley. It's 4,000 feet over the valley. And it really doesn't have a meadow that's very close to it, so I don't even know where you would land if you tried to base jump from that. Because the whole trail up is completely forested except for, like, the Mirror Lake area, and if you tried to land in Mirror Lake, you'd be landing in water. I don't know. I just find this whole story is like, look, I know that they've had illegal base jumping happening in Yosemite, but for him to act like, oh yeah, this is totally, best place in the world to base jump. No, it's illegal, and it is for a good reason. Especially off of Half Dome, because that Tenaya Canyon, which is what's right below Half Dome, is even more narrow than the Yosemite Valley where El Capitan is. So the winds are going to whip up even more severely in Tenaya Canyon.
The nose speed record, a prestigious title in the world of rock climbing. Alongside Timmy O'Neill, he attempted the nose on El Capitan, completing the route in an impressive 3 hours and 59 minutes, breaking the previous record set by Hans Florine and Peter Croft. which had stood at 4 hours and 31 minutes. Another significant achievement was Potter's second ascent of the notoriously challenging route on Half Dome, known as Southern Belle. It had not been successfully repeated since its first free ascent in 1988 by Dave Schultz and Scott Cosgrove, a span of over 18 years. With its sparse protection, Southern Belle remains one of the most dangerous climbs in Yosemite, and Potter acknowledged the high risk involved. "On a fair bit of the upper ground, if you fall, you might as well be dead," he said. Potter's most awe-inspiring and controversial climbs were his free solo endeavors throughout his career. He achieved numerous impressive free solo first ascents and introduced the concept of free base, solo climbing with a parachute as a last resort safety measure.
Yeah.
One such iconic ascent was Separate Reality, a route he soloed 5 times consecutively, leaving a profound mark on climbing history. In addition to that, he tackled the challenging route A Dog's Roof, one of the hardest free solos attempted in Yosemite, just days after his Separate Reality feat. Potter's achievements continue to be celebrated in the climbing community, leaving an unforgettable legacy in the world of extreme sports. When reflecting on his significant climbing achievements, Potter often mentioned his experiences in Argentina in 2002. It was a memorable season in Patagonia, where daring solo ascents were at their peak. In the Fitzroy Massif, Potter completed the first solo ascent of Super Canaleta, a demanding 1,600-foot or 490-meter route. Embracing a light-is-right approach, he took on this challenging climb with minimal gear, a quart of water, and no warm clothing. Setting off before dawn, he navigated the treacherous ice and granite, reaching the summit in an impressive 6.5 hours. Not long after, Potter climbed Cerro Torre via the compressor route in just 8.5 hours, facing an unexpected storm that left him seeking shelter in an ice cave with only a tin foil survival blanket for warmth. Only a little over a week later, Potter returned to the Fitzroy Massif for a record-breaking first ascent on a route he would later name Californian Roulette. This 70...
I don't know what he was the 4 people. I don't know if he's talking about the same group that I'm thinking of, but there were 4 base jumpers who did an act of civil disobedience. So they had already informed the park rangers that they were going to be doing this. They knew they were going to get arrested once they landed in the meadow because it was illegal. One of the 4, a female, was she didn't want her normal gear like confiscated from her because I guess she spent a lot of money on it or something. And what happened is she borrowed somebody else's like hand-me-down gear. And if we're talking about the same group of people here, the ones who did the act of civil disobedience, she was unable to launch the parachute because it operated slightly different than her normal gear, and so she was not trying to launch it from the same spot as where it was supposed to take off. And when she impacted the base of El Capitan, she registered on the Richter scale. It was like a 2 on the Richter scale or something like that. It's in that book. It was a powerful explosion, and I don't know how much of her body was recovered, you guys. But I feel like he's leaving some things out here.
100-foot or 2,100-meter route on Fitzroy's southwest side had claimed the lives of several climbers attempting it before. After a grueling 10-hour climb to the summit, tragedy struck as a falling toaster-sized boulder hit Potter's leg, causing him to black out. Despite severe injuries and perilous conditions, he embarked on a critical 36-hour descent, a survival situation of the highest risk in his climbing career. This experience motivated Potter to explore base jumping as a safer and more efficient way to descend from mountains, leading to a new chapter in his adventurous journey.
You're hovering, wondering if you...
One of the most contentious moments in Dean Potter's climbing career occurred during his free solo ascent of the Delicate Arch in Arches National Park, Utah. This climb triggered widespread controversy within the climbing community, leading to heated debates and criticism from friends and mentors.
Wow.
It even resulted in Potter losing sponsorship from two major companies, Patagonia and Black Diamond. Potter had been eyeing the 60-foot or 20-meter arch for over 12 years, and on May 6, 2006, he began working on it. He meticulously studied every feature in detail on the arch, but a fixed line had to be set up before attempting the free solo. This would allow him to practice and be recorded from above. The method used to set up the fixed line remains a mystery, as neither Potter nor Brad Lynch, his partner, revealed it. Potter is believed to have climbed the arch a total of 6 times. Despite claiming to adhere to a strict leave-no-trace approach, some critics allege that up to 5 rope grooves were left behind. In response, Potter defended himself, stating that the marks were not his. Others had been on the arch. Though climbing the arch wasn't technically illegal at the time, the backlash from Potter's ascent led to climbing bans throughout the park. These bans prevented new routes from being established in Arches National Park, significantly changing its climbing regulations. In 2008, Potter's solo ascent of the 1,000-foot or 300-meter deep blue sea on the north face of the Eiger was not only one of the most impressive achievements of his career, but also the testing ground for his innovative creation, freebase. The slightly overhanging limestone face of the Eiger provided the perfect environment for Potter to refine this new discipline, which allowed for the freedom of soloing with a safety parachute, minimizing the risk of instantaneous death. Spending the climbing season in Switzerland, Potter honed his base jumping skills and pushed his limits on the challenging limestone routes. Reflecting on the experience, he acknowledged, "Freebase climbing the deep blue sea has stirred my way of thinking more than anything in the past." After his groundbreaking ascent on the Eiger, Dean Potter returned to Yosemite Valley, bringing the honed freebase skills he acquired in Switzerland. He applied this innovative approach to the iconic walls of Yosemite, resulting in remarkable ascents. Among his most notable achievements was his solo climb of the Rostrum, a towering 1,400-meter pillar, first free soloed by Peter Croft in 1985. Potter took the challenge to a new level by repeating the Rostrum ascent and soloing the alien roof finish, an even more challenging feat, considered the hardest long solo attempted in the valley. Before Alex Honnold's groundbreaking free solo of Freerider, Dean Potter made significant progress in soloing El Capitan. Although not a complete free solo, Potter's partial ascent was a major milestone in El Capitan's free soloing history. He started from the top of El Capitan, down-climbed the slabby upper pitches of Lurking Fear, traversed the Thanksgiving Ledge, and finished the last 6 pitches of Freerider. Potter named this route Easy Rider, allowing him to bypass the technically challenging slab section at the start of Freerider. While not the first true free solo of El Capitan, his ascent undoubtedly contributed to the progression of free soloing on this iconic wall. Apart from his climbing achievements, Dean Potter was a pioneering figure in the world of slacklining. He attributed much of his climbing success to the skills developed through slacklining, which improved his balance, focus, and body awareness, qualities essential for navigating difficult climbing routes. Recognizing its benefits, the climbing community quickly embraced slacklining as a valuable training tool. In 2003, Potter achieved another milestone when he became the second person to highline the Lost Arrow Spire untethered, completing both the uphill and downhill versions. This extraordinary feat showcased...
Just so you all know, the Lost Arrow is featured in the movie Cliffhanger. And also the movie, the one with Jim Carrey. Pet Detective or something like that. It was the second one. He parodies the opening scene of Cliffhanger with like a raccoon or something, because he's like, a pet detective. But Cliffhanger is a story based in Yosemite, and it's actually based on a true story of a plane that went down. The rock climbers found a bunch of cocaine. They apparently made a lot of money on it, and then, started getting all nervous about like who might spill the beans. So somebody got pushed off the Yosemite Falls, Upper Yosemite Falls Trail, because it's very steep, very steep. narrow trail, but that is where they go, not only to get down after they've done their rock climbing, but a lot of these dudes also like volunteer their time to for like rescues, right? To help rescue people who have fallen off trails and fallen in various parts of the park, or they're stuck somewhere. So they actually have like a training situation where they run up and down that particular trail. And it was during one of these training exercises that one of the guys got pushed off the trail.
Faced his exceptional balance and fearlessness. Considering the Lost Arrow Spire's daunting 2,700-foot or 800-meter vertical rock formation in Yosemite National Park. Another memorable moment in Potter's slacklining career was the famous moonwalk at Cathedral Peak. The image of Potter, silhouetted against the moonlit sky as he traversed the High Line, has reached a near legendary status, cementing his status as a trailblazer in the world of slacklining. Upon discovering base jumping at the age of 30, Dean Potter, true to his adventurous nature, immediately began pushing the boundaries of the sport. Within a year of starting his base jumping career, he encountered a life-threatening incident at the Cave of Swallows near Mexico City. His parachute malfunctioned during a 1,200-foot or 365-meter jump, leaving him hurtling toward the ground with no protection. In a split-second decision, just 200 feet from the cave floor, Potter managed to grab a 10-millimeter rope used by other jumpers to climb out. Clutching the rope tightly, he crash-landed in the cave, miraculously surviving the fall, but sustaining severe hand injuries with deep rope burns in both palms. Despite this harrowing experience, Potter continued to push the limits of base jumping, becoming one of the leading base jumpers in the Americas. He also became a vocal advocate for legalizing base jumping in national parks. In 2011, Potter set a new record for the longest wingsuit flights ever recorded by flying 4.6 miles or 7.5 kilometers off the north face of Eiger. However, disaster struck on May 16, 2015, in Yosemite Valley. Standing with his partner, Graham Hunt, his girlfriend, Jen Rapp, and their dog, Whisper, at the edge of Taft Point, they looked down 3,000 feet or 900 meters above the famous Green Valley, with the sunset on the horizon.
I'm fairly certain this story is actually in Death in Yosemite. Fairly certain this one's covered, and that I've read it before, but this guy's got footage, so give me a second. All right.
Knowing that base jumping was illegal in national parks, especially in Yosemite, where the majestic cliffs make it a prime location, Potter and Hunt still jumped numerous times. They were familiar with the route, and despite the risks, they decided to take the leap. Taft Point is usually off-limits, marked with railings to protect tourists, but the thrill-seeking pair preferred jumping from a spot about 100 yards west. They would descend hundreds of feet with arms and legs spread, their wingsuits filling with air until falling turned into soaring through the air. They would fly right toward the heart of the valley. There is a sloping rib of a ridge there, a relatively unremarkable feature called Lost Brother. It is not marked on the park maps handed to visitors. It juts downward into the valley before abruptly ending into a vertical wall known mostly to climbers. In that ridge is a notch shaped like a V. Potter...
I don't know that you're correct about that. There's a children's map that they used to give out that marked all of the geological features in the park, and I'm fairly certain Lost Brother was on that map. At least back in the 80s when I was getting that children's map.
and Hunt had made the jump many times, sometimes together, sometimes not. Hunt had done it without Potter several days before. He would usually steer himself through the notch. Potter had been through the notch several times, but usually went around the ridge to the left. It depended on how well they maintained altitude once they began to fly. The men were zipped into their suits. They did not wait for the full cloak of dusk. A breeze from behind caught their attention, but did not send a strong enough warning to pause. It was 7:25 p.m. on May 16th. Potter jumped, and Hunt soon after. Jen Rapp clicked photographs. The men fell out of the frame before her lens caught them falling away, soaring with wings spread. Hunt quickly passed Potter. His suit was made for speed. Potter had set records for long flights and preferred loft. He had been in Canada working on a design to allow him to land on his belly on glacial ice with no parachute necessary. He's low, Jen thought to herself. Why is he going toward the notch? She saw Hunt veer left as if to go around the ridge, then quickly back to the right. Potter held his line for the notch. They disappeared into the hole that led to the dusky valley. Rapp heard a thwap. Her mind tried to tell her it was the familiar sound of a parachute deploying. It was followed almost immediately by a duller, heavier sound. Rapp waited alone on the cliff's edge for more clues from below. None came. She clicked through her camera to retrace the flight paths in the photos. In 2 dimensions, without depth perception, it was hard to tell what happened to the shrinking specks in the frames. There was Hunt, who disappeared into the grayness of the rocks. There was Potter, who made it through the leading edge of the notch, a downward half-pipe, and fell out of sight. Somewhere far below was Rebecca Haney, Hunt's girlfriend of a few months. She had been hiking when Hunt called, saying that he and Potter planned to jump at Taft Point, meet at the meadow at 7:30. She aborted her hike and went to the lodge area in Yosemite Valley to get a drink and pass the time. She did not see a text message that Hunt sent at 6:55 until about 7:25 because of spotty cellular service in Yosemite. He had asked her to turn on her 2-way radio to communicate. She quickly texted back that she would in a few minutes. She drove around the darkening forested roads for 90 minutes, waiting to hear from Hunt again. I was putting my faith in a lot of irrational places, she said in a phone interview, even though I knew what probably happened. In the dwindling light, Rapp rushed back up the trail to the parking lot. She drove her car the 13 miles or 20 kilometers back to Wawona Road, made a right, and headed down to the valley floor. She went to El Capitan Meadow, but there was no one there. Her phone had no text.
I thought you said she was at the lodge. I'm very confused by this route. The Wawona Hotel is like up the mountain. It's like an hour away from the valley. I thought you said she was at the lodge having drinks. That's like the Yosemite Lodge. That's like right next to their potential landing spot. Like if they're jumping off Taft Point, they would be landing in the meadow that's right across from the Yosemite Lodge. Like, why would she be anywhere near Wawona? That does not make any sense to me. I'm not. I feel like your information is incorrect here.
Messages. Unsure of what to do or where to go, she drove to the rented house she and Potter shared in Yosemite West, a cluster of homes back up Wawona Road, past the Glacier Point turnoff. The couple recently bought 31 acres nearby and had plans to build their own home. That rainy and cool day had been spent clearing trees and brush, and Hunt was there to help until the clearing skies led to the idea of making an evening jump.
Which, by the way, is a crying shame that they actually sell off land within a national park for personal use like that. That's some bullshit. That should not be going on at all. But yes, I am aware of Yosemite West.
Off Taft Point. Upon arriving at the dark and empty house, Jen's mind raced as she studied the photos and considered various scenarios. She wondered if the sounds she heard were Hunt crashing or if Potter had witnessed the accident and was searching for his friend. Perhaps Potter was hurt, or maybe they were hiding from park rangers or had been arrested. Her thoughts were a mix of hope and worry, and she kept anticipating their return. Around 9:30, a car pulled up, and Haney stepped out alone. The two women drove back into the valley, looking for familiar faces among climbers camping or hanging around the village and the bar, but found none. At about 10:30, they sought help from Mike Gauthier, Yosemite's chief of staff, who quickly called the Yosemite dispatcher to report the missing base jumpers. A late-night search was initiated by rangers and volunteers from Yosemite Search and Rescue. As daybreak arrived, there were still no answers, and Jen felt helpless waiting. At 4 a.m., she decided to take binoculars and head...
You know, seriously, if you're going to try and do some illegal base jumping in Yosemite, maybe you should do it a little earlier in the morning, so that way if you do encounter some problems, the rescuers will have a little bit more daylight to work with. I mean, God damn.
To the base of the canyon below Lost Brother, hoping to spot any movement or color. She screamed into the darkness but received no response. As the helicopter took off in the morning, 2 bodies were quickly spotted. It was evident that neither man had deployed a parachute. Hunt had crashed into the right wall after clearing the base of the notch, while Potter was found several hundred feet farther into the notch. Speculation arose that the site of Hunt's accident, or the air disturbance from his maneuvers, might have affected Potter's concentration or control. Contrary to some news reports, neither man wore a GoPro video recorder, but Potter had jumped with a smartphone strapped to his head. Although the phone was heavily damaged, Park Service investigators hoped to find clues from it, along with Rapp's photos. The search for answers and understanding of the tragic event continued. Rapp returned to Taft Point 3 days after the accident. By then, there was a memorial at the cliff's edge, where Potter and Hunt had made their final jump.
Wow.
El Capitan sits across the valley a little to the left. Yosemite Falls can be seen a little to the right over the top of the brown, downsloping ridge with the notch. The memorial included feathers, a beer can, Tibetan prayer flags, and a photograph of Potter. There is little doubt that Potter's spirit will be felt in Yosemite and far beyond, thanks to the legendary legacy he carved out in his most extraordinary, original way. Potter lived on the outer edge of extreme sports and perished in his beloved Yosemite National Park. The beauty of Yosemite inspired him to be the best possible artist, partner, father, and friend, Rapp said. This is exactly where he'd want his rule-breaking, fringe-pushing, counterculture spirit to live forever. Dean Potter was a visionary in the climbing world, continually pushing the limits of human capability in free solo climbing, highlining, and base jumping. He explored new routes and techniques, inspiring others to think creatively and pursue their own boundaries. Potter's death was a stark reminder of the risks inherent in extreme sports, particularly base jumping. His passing prompted discussions about safety, risk management, and the importance of responsible decision-making in high-risk activities. During the memorial service, Jen Rapp sat alone on a rock. A raven appeared. Unflinchingly, it approached and patiently ate a piece of salami out of her hand. It had never happened to her before. The way the raven looked at me so intently, Rapp said, pausing as the thought drifted unfinished. Yeah, it was Dean. In an Instagram post 3 weeks before his death, Potter pondered how he had managed to survive all these years. He said he wanted to be free like a raven. Somehow, I've made a life of dipping my toes in icy water, feeling the lift of fresh, clean air and the pull of planets overhead, he wrote. Sure, I lack a lot, but it's equally for sure that I fly free.
Okay.
Base jumping with a wingsuit is an...
So he all of a sudden became like an adult raven? That's what happened? He's just like, bam, I'm an adult raven now. The thing is, ravens are actually a very intelligent bird, and they can actually form relationships with humans, and they can tell if you're going to be kind to them, or if they have an innate sense for this. It doesn't necessarily mean that he's been reincarnated into a raven. All right, let's go.
Incredibly extreme and dangerous sport. It involves jumping from a fixed object such as a cliff or building and gliding through the air using a specialized jumpsuit called a wingsuit. Due to the high-risk nature of this activity, safety measures are of paramount importance. Proper training is absolutely critical before attempting base jumping with a wingsuit. You should have extensive experience in skydiving, base jumping without a wingsuit, and canopy piloting. It is essential to be comfortable with all aspects of regular base jumping before adding the complexities of a wingsuit. Learning from those with a proven track record can help you understand the sport's nuances and learn valuable safety tips. Regularly inspect and maintain your wingsuit, parachute, and other gear. Make sure everything is in proper working condition before each jump. Invest in high...
By the way, all the jumps they're showing you right now, this is not Yosemite. This is not Yosemite, you guys. It's totally different location. There is no way they would be cool with this kind of activity happening.
Quality, properly fitting gear designed specifically for wingsuit base jumping. Assess the jump site and conditions thoroughly before jumping. Factors like weather, wind conditions, obstacles, and landing areas should be carefully evaluated. Avoid jumping from objects that are too low or too challenging for your current abilities. Base jumping with a wingsuit requires a high level of physical fitness. Ensure you are in good health and have the stamina to perform the jump safely. Mental preparedness is just as crucial as physical training. Understand the risks involved and be mentally prepared for the challenges you may face during the jump. Remember that base jumping with a wingsuit is an extreme activity, and even with all safety measures in place, there is still a significant level of risk involved. Always prioritize safety and consider the consequences of your actions. Important safety measures so you can avoid an outdoor disaster.
Right.